Hello, and welcome to the Growing Our Family podcast, Pregnancy Edition, where we'll discuss topics ranging from your very first positive test all the way through delivery. I'm your host, Brittany, and I'm a new mom to a beautiful baby boy. Throughout my pregnancy, I did hours of research on everything that came my way. Join me on a weekly chat where I'll share my knowledge and personal experiences with all of you. You are listening to episode 7, Choosing Childcare. If you're expecting or trying to go back to work, you will most likely need to find childcare for your children. The best daycares and nannies book up so quickly, so it's important to start your search early. This post is intended to help you decide which form of childcare is best for your family and what to consider when selecting a facility. If you're pregnant, you should start looking now. Hopefully you're earlier in your pregnancy because I could not believe how quickly daycares filled up. I started my search at around 20 weeks pregnant, and I thought I was jumping the gun a bit. To my surprise, I was actually slightly behind the curve, and some daycares were even turning me away. The timing really depends on where you live. If you're located somewhere like San Francisco or New York, you might want to get your name on a waiting list the day you find out you're pregnant. Other places that are more rural, you might be able to walk in 8 months pregnant and still secure a spot. However, I would rather be on the over-prepared side who gets a spot on the wait list way in advance versus showing up late to the party and getting myself in a pinch to find someone to watch my kid. So there's a few different types of childcare. You'll want to find one that really works best for you, and this will just depend on your situation. The most common options will be a childcare facility, an in-home daycare, a nanny in your house, and then a family member watching your kid. A group facility is the most common form of childcare. These typically have multiple classes sorted by age, and each class will have designated teachers and age-appropriate toys, activities, and goals. This type of center has a classroom-like setting where kids are able to play and interact with other children their age. They have more adults on site and usually smaller child-to-teacher ratios, and it's super common for these larger facilities to take place in a commercial building instead of like a residence and have more regulations and inspections than any other type of childcare option. When searching for a daycare, you'll want to first determine which ones are licensed near you. And licensing does not guarantee that it will be a high quality facility, but it does guarantee that they meet the minimum standards. You can look up your state-specific licensing information through the National Database of Child Care Licensing Regulations, and I link to that in my show notes if you're curious or want to check it out. There are a few downsides to group care. Scheduling conflicts are the number one reason people decide not to use a group facility. They typically have much more limited hours than the other options, and their hours of operation may not work with your work schedule. Not only that, but their late policies can be strict, costing you extra if you're running behind for pickup. Having a large group of children can be encouraging in some aspects. This allows your child to play with other kids, learn how to share, and develop at a faster pace while watching the other kids. However, it does have its disadvantages. Some children struggle with overstimulation, and it can really take a toll on their sleep schedules. They may also have to share the attention between other children. The teachers only have 2 hands, and the ratios are usually 3 or 4 children to 1 teacher. Home daycare are similar to group facilities, except for they are held inside of a home. The children will vary in age, and most likely they'll have anywhere between 2 to 15 total children, with 1 to 2 caregivers on average. The exact number of children and teacher-child ratios will depend on your local government regulations and the type of daycare. A family daycare usually has 1 adult caring for about 1 to 6 kids, and sometimes these types of daycare will limit kids to a certain age range, but many will take kids of all ages. The other type of home daycare is a group care, and this usually has 2 or more adults on site, and these types of daycares can have more children and varieties of ages. The number of kids will depend on mostly your local government regulations. Home daycares still have to be licensed in most states, and they make sure that they are following all the safety regulations. However, these daycares are typically less stringent on schedules and are frequently less expensive. The homey environment can be very appealing to parents, especially for children that might need more attention or special accommodations, such as being rocked to sleep. Most home daycares allow for siblings to be together in one room, and the hours can be more flexible compared to a center. Some of the downsides of in-home daycare include less regulations and limited backup plans. Most in-home daycares have a backup plan in place in the event of an illness, but emergencies happen and plans can fall through. Additionally, licensing for in-home daycares vary by state, so the daycare may not have as strict of guidelines to ensure proper safety and cleanliness. The third type of childcare is an in-home nanny. So an in-home nanny is typically the most expensive option. This is where a nanny comes to your house and watches your kids while you're gone. This is very convenient because you do not have to worry about pickup or drop-off, packing and preparing bottles or meals, or even the spread of germs that comes with a group daycare. Nannies provide parents with more control over how their child spends their day. You can decide what your baby is exposed to, what and when he or she eats, where they go, and what your overall schedule looks like when they take naps. The nanny is focused solely on your child or children, and there is no other competition for their attention. Some nannies will even double as a mother's helper, and their job could include washing dishes, picking up the house, even doing laundry. This could significantly help out any working parent and allow for more bonding time with your kids after work, instead of having to focus on household chores. This can also be a huge benefit if you have pets, allowing them to be out and about instead of putting them in doggy daycare or having to crate them at home. Having one person care for your child can help them form a bond to that one person. At a standard daycare, your kid could have multiple people taking care of them throughout one day. With a nanny, your child will be able to develop a relationship with the nanny, and this can be a very special bond. Even though nannies seem to have multiple benefits, they also have their downsides. First, they typically cost significantly more than a daycare. The costs vary by location and number of children, but it would be difficult to find a nanny willing to watch your kids for the same price as a daycare facility with multiple children. Second, there is not usually a backup in place if they get sick or if they're running late. In a daycare setting, if someone calls in sick, they are responsible for finding a replacement. If your nanny calls in sick or shows up late, you are now responsible for caring for your child until they can arrive, even if this means missing work. And third, they are not regulated by any agency. This means that they're not required to follow any rules such as keeping up certifications, handling food safely, or even following safe sleep standards. This is why it's so important to find a nanny that agrees with your parenting style and is willing to follow any rules you set. You're also required to run your own background checks and do any research on the nanny yourself versus just relying on the daycare center to do that for the people they employ. And the final option for childcare is having a family member watch your kid. Some families are super fortunate and they can have family members close enough that are willing to watch your child. This provides most of the benefits of a nanny and maybe at even a slightly lower cost. However, this is a great option for more reasons than cost. Having a family member watch your children means that there's a built-in bond that ensures that they are getting more love and attention than most strangers could ever provide. You also don't have to worry as much about a change in childcare. Daycare workers come and go, and nannies may not stay forever, but it's much more likely that your relative will stay nearby and will always be in your child's life. As great as an option this may seem, it still does have its downsides. The most common issue is having a power struggle between the parents and caretaker. Different generations may have a different idea on what's best for your child. Sometimes it can be really hard to come to an agreement, especially on things that have changed over the years, like safe sleep practices. Most grandparents use the phrase, "Well, I did this and you turned out just fine." And it's important to explain to them that although you value their input, you're just doing what you feel is best for your child. Rules can be much harder to enforce with a relative than it is with a nanny or daycare worker. Another factor to consider is if your child will get the same learning experiences. At a daycare, there are activities to develop important skills, and it's important that your child still gets these experiences and the caretaker is working with them like a nanny or daycare would. If you're not happy with how your child is being cared for, it's much harder to cut ties with a family member. You can always fire a nanny or switch daycares, but it's so much harder to explain to grandma why you don't want her to babysit for you anymore. When looking for a childcare facility, you want to start by getting recommendations. Just ask around if you have friends with children, find out who and what type of childcare they use. You can also join local mom groups on Facebook, and this will provide you with a great starting point. Ask for recommendations and create a list depending on what type of childcare you're looking for. Once you have a solid list of potential caretakers, you can start doing your research. It's not always the best to just ask for one suggestion and blindly hire them. What works for other families may not be the best option for yours. So look up the facility or nanny, meet the caretaker in person, and take a tour of wherever your child will be spending their days. Once you have a list of the top contenders, take a visit. Taking a tour of the prospective daycare makes all the difference in the world. When we were interviewing facilities, the daycare that we thought we were going to love ended up being our least favorite. They were so strict on drop-off and pickup times, and they had schedules for every single second of the day. They were honestly a little rude and not very friendly to us while we were visiting. Although strict schedules may be some parents' dream, it wasn't really the right fit for us, and we would have never known that until we actually toured it. The daycare will most likely give you the whole rundown of how the facility works and what to expect, but here are some good questions to ask while you're there. Number 1, what is your child-to-teacher ratio? The less children a teacher has to take care of, the more time they can spend with your child. This helps ensure they are fed on time and get plenty of kettles, among other things. A standard ratio is 4-1, but our daycare has a 3-1 policy, and I really believe it makes such a big difference. Number 2, how do you handle bottle preparation? Make sure they are following safe guidelines for storage and preparation. The CDC has guidelines on safe formula storage and safe breast milk storage preparation, and I can link to those in the show notes for you to check out and just read through them before you go and tour the daycare and see if they're following what the CDC says. They should be, especially if they are licensed, but it's always good to double check and kind of know what the guidelines are before you go and visit. Number 3, what is their policy on visitors? Are parents allowed to drop in anytime? Can moms come and breastfeed during their lunch breaks? Who else is allowed to visit during the day? And you should see how your daycare is. Some daycares have strict visiting policies and others are pretty lax. Just make sure that the daycare you choose fits your needs. At my daycare, parents are allowed to come and stay for as long as they want. But grandparents or other family members or guests are limited to, I think, like 30 minutes a day. And so that's really nice for parents. I'm allowed to go and breastfeed my son during my lunch breaks, or if he was formula fed, you could go and give him a bottle yourself and just hang out with him while you eat your lunch. And it's really nice to kind of have that break in the day to just bond with your child. I couldn't imagine if my daycare had strict visiting policies, even for parents. Question number 4, what is your security procedure? Is there a door code or a fingerprint scanner? What is the procedure on checking kids in and out? How many people can be on the approved drop-off and pickup list? So my daycare only gives out the door code and fingerprint scanner to parents or guardians. We're allowed to add others to the approved pickup or drop-off list, but they have to check in with the front desk every time, provide a form of ID, and complete the sign-in and out form. If they show up and I didn't tell them beforehand that someone else was picking them up, then the daycare just gives me a call and approves that, I'm allowing someone else to pick up my kid, even if they're on the approved drop off or pickup list. I really like this because it just makes me know that my kid's safe and no one's going to be able to sneak them out the back door if no one's looking. Question number 5, what does a normal day look like? So, do they do activities? Will they work on achieving developmental milestones by doing things like tummy time or playing music? Or do they offer daily reports to keep parents up to date? Our daycare does daily reports, and it includes when my kid last ate, how long he ate for, how much he ate. So if I send him with a 4-ounce bottle, they put, he only ate 3.5 ounces. It also lists exactly what times he fell asleep and woke up from his naps. So that not only tells me how many naps a day he took, but also about what time of day, so I can see if he's really on any sort of schedule that I can try to stick to on the weekends when I'm home with him. Question number 6, how do they handle diapering? Do they use community wipes, diapers, or rash cream? So this means that you bring in so many packs per week and all the babies share. So my daycare uses community wipes, but we have to bring in our own diapers and rash cream, which I prefer because not all diapers work on all babies. And, we have our specific ones that work best on our son. And I wouldn't really want him getting other diapers. So that's always a great question to ask and just see what their policy is. You also want to see if you can use cloth diapers, if that's something you're interested in. And how often babies are changed. They change our son every single hour unless he's sleeping, if there's anything at all. So sometimes I know he's peed and there's like barely anything in the diaper, but they still change him, which is really great if your baby has sensitive skin. But for us, my son will pee literally right after you put a diaper on him. So he gets 8 diapers a day just at daycare, and we go through packs so quickly. But, it's easier for them to keep track, and it's better for him to be overchanged than underchanged, in my opinion. And you'll also want to ask if they track wet or poopy diapers, and this will determine if they're getting enough food, if they're dehydrated, or if you have to change up their eating schedule at all. Question number 7, what if we're late picking up? Some daycares will charge you an amount for every single minute you're late, and others will only charge you if you don't call and let them know beforehand. So you just want to see what their policy is and how strict they are on it. Number 8, what is your policy on sickness? There might come a time when your child wakes up with the flu and you'll have to stay home from work to take care of them. Most daycares have a policy on when children are not allowed to come in, and this just protects other kids from getting sick. This is typically one of the following symptoms or combination of fever, throwing up, rash, or really any other typical flu symptom. Number 9, what is your sanitation routine? How often do they clean the floors, sweep, mop, vacuum, or shampoo the carpet? How often do they sanitize the toys? Are the cribs and other furniture wiped down regularly? For our daycare, they sanitize the floors and the toys every single day at the end of the day. And then at the end of the week, cribs and all the furniture are wiped down and sanitized before the weekend. And they send all the crib sheets and blankets and everything home with the parents to be washed and brought back on Monday morning. Number 10, tuition, fees, and availability. So what is the yearly tuition and how often do you make payments? Is this weekly, monthly, or something different? Are there any other yearly fees or waitlist deposits? Is there a waitlist and or availability? Do they offer discounts for multiple children, paying in advance, or anything like that? And be sure to ask if future children are guaranteed a spot. You don't want your first kid going and then this daycare to get super popular and now you have a second kid and there's no room on the wait list for him, and then you'd have to pull your kid out of this daycare and take him somewhere else. So most daycares do grandfather in any future children, but that's always just something to ask about to make sure. And the final question is ask about the teachers. So find out how long they've been in childcare with this daycare or with any daycare. See if they conduct background checks on all their staff. What training do they have? Typically, you want them to have CPR, first aid, anything like that for safety reasons. And you can also see if they'll be willing to give your child medicine if necessary. I haven't had to experience this yet, but it's always something good that they would do it for you instead of having to leave work however many times a day if your kid ever got sick or just needed any sort of medication throughout the day. You want to make sure the teachers are able to do that and willing to. So that's it for my list of questions. This week, I'm reviewing one of the items that I always keep at daycare and in my diaper bag. The floor can get so dirty, so the last thing I need is for my son's pacifier to fall on the ground. Pacifier clips are my new favorite item. Recently, my child thinks it's so funny to purposely drop his pacifier, teethers, or any other toy he's currently gnawing on, and then he gets mad because he no longer has it. Obviously, baby logic isn't great, so this is why I love my pacifier clips. They're so simple. One side loops through the pacifier, toy, or teether, and the other side has a simple clip that you can just attach to baby's clothes, his car seat, or stroller. Normally, I love using the Dr. Brown's pacifier wipes on Amazon, but recently we were at a baseball game and my son dropped his teether onto the sunflower seed and peanut shell riddled ground. Needless to say, there are some situations that I just don't feel comfortable wiping it down, and I just put it away for a full sterilization at home. I personally own the Laname brand, which I probably said wrong. It's Liname. And they come in super cute designs, and they have a very low profile clip. The metal clip is pretty sturdy, making it almost impossible for baby to pull off. Even though the clip is secure, it has never damaged any clothing, which is a huge plus. The only downside is they can be a little harder to open the clasp than any other brands that I've tried, but I feel like this contributes to how well it stays in place when it's clamped onto baby's clothes. I also feel like this will come in handy later when baby learns how to open and close things. It'll be a lot harder for him to get this specific clip undone. Overall, I think these are a really great addition to your arsenal of baby items, and I highly suggest checking them out on Amazon, and I'll definitely link to those as well in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Growing Our Family Pregnancy Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, growingourfamily.com. That's growingourfamily.com to see today's show notes and product links. Also, don't forget to rate and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you download your podcast so you always get the latest episodes. If you love the show, the easiest way to support us is to actually click on any of the Amazon links I have in the show notes or within my blog posts. I am an Amazon affiliate, which means I do earn a very small percentage of anything you purchase through my links at no additional cost to you. So if you click on the link, even if you don't end up buying that particular item, I still get a small kickback from anything you add to your cart within 24 hours of clicking. You definitely don't have to, but it's a great way to help support the show if you're enjoying the content. If you've had your baby or want to learn more about life after delivery, check out the Growing Our Family Parenting Edition. Please join me next week for another episode.